All right.
All right. Welcome back to the 3P podcast, Passion, Pain, and Progress. I'm your host, Darnell Turner, and I have a special guest today. I'm here with Coach Donald. Introduce yourself to the people.
Hey, what's going on, good people? I'm Coach Donald from Global Human Performance. I'm from Pittsburgh, PA. I've been a runner my whole life, from being a little kid on the block, just racing people, to getting into cross country, getting into track. I own the gym called Global Human Performance. We're over in Point Breeze. We work with a lot of athletes on strength training, helping them get stronger bodies, helping them move past injuries, moving past stagnant training, and helping them really learn what it means to train. So we have a great team here. It's been quite a journey just in that regard of building this and going from, the trainer who got the workouts over at the park and, working and trying to get scrap stuff together to having a functioning business. So that's been great. I'm recently getting into triathlons, and, if you're into like sci-fi books, man, we could go to town, talk about some sci-fi, travel. So I'm glad this brother reached out, and I'm looking forward to being able to talk, seeing his journey, and especially as I recently got into triathlons, it's fantastic to be able to just have the opportunity to share the room and talk.
Oh man, so let's get right into it. Look, so one of the biggest questions that I have from people that ask me is, so how do you get into endurance sports? So what's your advice for anybody who's thinking about getting into endurance or just running their first mile?
To get into endurance and for running your first mile, just a little bit every day. Like walking, especially if you're not somebody who already runs, just walking is a great thing. Just go out and walk for 30 minutes, walk for 45 minutes. The discipline is in curating that time, whether it's early in the morning, whether it's in the middle of your day, or whether it's just in the evening, and being able to say, hey, I'm just gonna go walk for 30 minutes. I'm gonna go walk for an hour. And then you start adding a little jogging in there. You don't gotta go bite off more than you can chew. Can you move for an hour? Because if you can move for an hour, that's going to build up your fitness great. Your leg strength, your leg endurance, your heart endurance. And if you're at a point where you can't run a 5K, promise walking for an hour, 4, 5, 6 days a week is going to get you in shape. And so, what it'll do for somebody who can't run a 5K is going to be way more than what it might do for me. And so then you start adding in let me jog for 2 minutes every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Let me jog for 5 minutes every 15 minutes, right? And you start building up that stamina until you can jog for 20 minutes straight, until you can jog. Oh my God, I can jog for 30 minutes. I could, can you break it up? Maybe you jog 30 minutes and walk 30 minutes, but it's 5 on, 5 off, 10 on, 10 off. You start building that up until you can actually go for 45 minutes. And you can jog for 45 minutes, you're at a point now where you can run a 15-minute per mile 5K, which, that's, kind of entry level to being able to run is about 14, 15 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, that's good advice. And that's something that I wish I would have known when I first started, because I think when I first started, I just went in. I was just I'm running, and I was flatlining every time. I would just be all right, I'm running a mile, and I would run the hardest I can. But it wasn't until I learned how to use my breath and how to actually use my lungs to build that strength, my lung strength. That's when it took over. And so I always wanted to ask a professional that, because a lot of people ask me, and I can give, like I said before we started, I'm a trial and error type of guy, right? So I will go through it 100 times before I be okay, let me go get some help. Yeah. So if I can help any of you guys to shorten your time, to actually get you to running the miles faster and doing it actually the right way, that these are the questions that I want to ask as well. And another question is, so your running form. Mm-hmm. This is a big thing that I did not take serious until I started actually running longer distances. And so in the Pittsburgh Marathon, I see you were there, right? You did the Pittsburgh.
I did the relay.
You did the relay, yep, I remember. So one of the things that happened to me is after mile 13, coming up the hill, I think my form broke down, right? And I was overcompensating on one side, and I think I injured my left ankle really, really bad. So I was hobbling through finishing the whole race. From 13 up to finish, I was hobbling the whole time.
That's half the race, bro.
Yes, I was in pain. What is some of the advice that you can give to new runners to help with their form and their technique to actually building that foundation that we need to run the longer distances?
I think a very big piece of this is concentration and intentionality with your workouts. So I've been getting into anime lately, so I'm gonna take a quick tangent. So there's this show called Demon Slayer. It's cute anime. It does not sound as gory as it sounds, but the show Demon Slayer, the main character, he talks about is he learning, like he has some ability, but he needed to level up. So he was doing this, he was practicing meditative breathing, and it was in the show they call it total concentration, constant, right? Can I focus on my breathing and my body awareness throughout the day? And like it was a fun little thing in the show, but like it kind of took me by storm. And so like I really would try to focus on my posture, my breathing throughout the day. I say that because when it comes to running and like training, this is something that I tell a lot of my runners way before I started watching the show, was you have to have a checklist about what you're focusing on. I just did the Baltimore half, and I had a situation that was related to that. And I got to mile 6.5, and my knee started popping. And usually that only happens when I get in really cold weather. But I had to like stop and stretch. I had the trap music going. I'm jumping, first 6 miles. But it got to the point where like I wasn't really zoned in about my form. And so I put the goggins on, and then it made me think about, man, I'm taking my music out. I take the music out, and then I got into this breathing state and going heavy into my checklist for the next 45, 50 minutes. And what I would offer, something to think about to work on that form is when you're doing your training runs, whether they're, interval runs, whether you're doing a tempo run, whether you're doing a cruise run, whether you're just doing a long run, or you're just doing a recovery run, is going through your checklist. First, we start from the ground up. How are my feet hitting the ground? Spend some time, online. That's something that I can talk to people about. That's something there's other people who can talk to you about, a gait analysis. How is your foot hitting the ground? I have an idea that I need my foot to go this way every time. Midfoot, outside to inside. I need a smooth bounce every single step. So I go through that checklist, right? Am I bouncing through my stride? That helps me also analyze my effort at the time. How's my leg cycle, all right? How high is my heel coming up? If I'm making a push past somebody, I need my heels to come up a lot more. If I'm just getting into like a quick and I'm trying to keep a high tempo, okay, maybe I keep my feet lower for a long run, right? So how's my cadence how's my foot cycle? Then it's the speed. This is all just lower body. Right. Then it's the speed. How's my foot cadence, right? I know that if I need to move fast, for me, while I'm strong and I can get a good stride, I'm still short. So now I really know I need to just turn my feet a little faster. Right. When I'm doing repeat 200s on the track, all right, foot speed, right? Then going up to upper body, right? Arms. How's my arms? One thing I talk to people about is when I do any intro running course for anybody, and even if I'm working with people I've been working with for years, we have a proverbial drum right here, right? The power and rhythm of your arms comes in the downstroke. So I like to look at them beating through a drum, and how's this down? Because when I pull down, this pec tendon right here, this snaps my arm forward. And so all I have to do is come down because my arm is going to come forward. And so I use that rhythm of the right arm, left leg, or left arm and right leg, and boom, I'm here. So I'm focusing on that rhythm. Am I intentionally being at a certain rhythm to set my pace? I was watching a thing, Mo. She's the Olympic champion and world champion in 800. Okay. And so Sonia Richards-Ross would always be on and talk about her carry, and her arm carry is very low. And so I started doing that because I used to be even at slow speeds, like big arms, and then I started getting out of that, a low carry allows me to actually maintain a quick stride, but it's very energy efficient on the arms, versus when I watch people who are new to running or they just don't have good form and they're tired, they run like this. Yeah. I have a kid, oh my gosh, I was fussing at her at the Whitfield Championship just a couple days ago because she started running like this, and it's no, you gotta flow. But even if you're running at a slower pace, you don't want to be up here. Because again, the power is in the down. I can't get any spring and power into the ground if my arms are just running like this. Wow. So I started carrying low because even if my arm's down here, I can still get the snap down from there. So I go through that part of my checklist. I go and make sure that I'm not being all crossbody, and I'm not making sure I'm not using any extra energy moving. So these are all things on my checklist. My breathing. This is something new for me, in the last couple of years that I've been working on a lot more, is breathing through my steps. So when I'm in, I'll go left foot. I like to pay attention to my left foot. So I'll go breathe in for 2 to 3 left foot steps. breathe out for 2 to 3 left foot steps. And then I try to match, how is that to my current speed and effort, right? Because I know that sometimes, depending on how fast I'm going, if I try to breathe in or breathe out for 3 whole left foot steps, I might run out of breath. But sometimes I know it's all right, it's 2, and then I start right after 2, but then I might start the next cycle a couple steps later. Like, you got to play around with it. I'm not going to get into that too deep. Sometimes it's 2 steps. And so I work on that, because one thing about the breathing is your exhale is what helps you stay calm. Your body is not as concerned about getting new oxygen in as it is with getting rid of the CO2. The CO2 is what stresses you. And so your body needs to get rid of that. And your ability to stay calm and breathe allows you to keep your heart rate and your ventilation down, and allows you to be more conservative with your energy. If you start breathing too fast, you start burning through energy a lot faster. And so that's something that I go through. So I go through that checklist. All of those things I mentioned about my lower body, my bounce, my rhythm, my foot height, my arms, my overall movement, my breathing. And I go through that checklist. Sometimes when it gets hard, I'll get into a real meditative state where I just start counting my breath, my breathing outs. I did this during the Baltimore half. I'm just breathing out. Every time I breathe out, I just counted it. I didn't do this for several miles. I did it for a couple miles, but for going back to your question, for somebody who wants to work on that form, learning what the form is, and then every time you go run, there's intent. Even if I'm going on a recovery run and I'm on the phone, I'm still in the back of my head going through my checklist. And depending, the intensity of the workout determines how heavy I get into that checklist, but I'm always going through that and teaching people to pay attention to what your body's doing. Because you have to then, once you know the basic algorithm of that, because there's an algorithm essentially, all that's an algorithm. Once you know that, then you have that awareness, you start trying to factor in weather, sleep, nutrition, hills, effort. Just, do I feel great today, or do I just feel like crap? Because then you have to factor that into how your body feels and what time is on that watch.
Yeah. See, one of the biggest things, and I like what you said there, because I started thinking about my journey through getting into endurance, and I remember thinking to myself when I got to a point where I could run a 10-minute pace, and I remember thinking to myself, like, how much am I leaving on the table by not checking off some of those things? Because I remember until like maybe 6 months ago, my heel strike was serious. I mean, I've eaten shoes up. If I showed you my running shoes, you'd be like, how is your knees not broke? Because I just know that I was just coming down so hard. So when I started paying attention to like how my foot's hitting the ground and my breath work and where my arms are, because before when I started running, it was just everywhere. Like my body, I just remember at some point I was running and I was just doing this, and I was just everywhere. And I remember bringing in tight, thumbs up. And I remember like being conscious about how I'm actually running, and it took me to a whole nother level. But I say that to say this, right? How many times have you been driving on the street and you've seen someone running and you're like, bro, you gotta fix that?
Every week at least, several times a week sometimes. Sometimes I'd be in the car and, if it's somebody, a friend of mine, somebody I'm dating, my nephew, whoever, I'd be like, man, they're doing that. And they're like, what? Nothing, man. The arms are crazy. They heel striking. Or they like, it's like this. Or like, some people, they got this long overstride and they just push them. All sorts of things I'd be noticing. I'd be sometimes wanting to call them out the car. I'm like, mind my business.
I was on my way over here and I seen a guy and he was running and he was doing and I was just like, hey bro, you're hurting yourself, man. You're taking yourself out. And I'm even like that on bikes. When I see somebody that's riding a bike that's too big or too small for them, I'd be like, go get fitted, please. Like, you're gonna injure yourself. So
I had a moment like that earlier this week. I was at the track and there was a guy who, I'm learning about bikes, right? So like there was a woman, shout out to Tara Gundrum, I just did a show on her podcast and she was awesome. I ran into her on the Gap Trail and my shoulders were killing me because my seat was too low. And so she was like, no, just raise your seat up like a couple of inches. Changed my whole life for the next 60 miles. Yeah. And so I saw this dude on the bike and his knees were like this and he was getting no extension. And I'm like, man, my boy, you gotta raise your seat up. Right. You're killing yourself.
Yeah. It happens so much. Another question. Another question that I want to ask you, because now you sparked my interest because you said that you listen to David Goggins, right? So one thing that I want to ask you, and I told you a little bit my story about getting into endurance and everything. Like, so what got you into endurance training? Like, first of all, how long have you been doing coaching?
So I've been coaching since 2011. That's my first time. I mean, if I want to count like high school, I was coaching my homeboy who I was living with back in 2009 for track workouts, but I didn't know nothing about nothing. I was just repeating workouts from my old coach. Shout out to Coach Chuck. And then, but like for real, when I was in college as a sophomore, we had a park ranger training program. So I started doing a lot of speed and agility stuff and running stuff for the park rangers who were trying out to do their PT exam. And then later on, I got into more opportunities to do strength training. So I've been doing it since I was like a sophomore in college. And then that's when I started coaching track, actually.
Wow. Okay. And so what made you and I know you've coached, and I talked to another trainer before, and he was like, it just came natural, right? Mm-hmm. So what about it I've been talking to a lot more trainers, and they're just like, it was kind of like a no-brainer. Like you said, you was doing it for so long, it was just, this is what you do. Mm-hmm. What was that switch in your mind to be like, now let me turn this into a business?
So there is levels to this, because back in high school, my MO when I was in 10th grade, I was interested in like real estate, because just the way I grew up, I was in foster care, like I lived around life. High school years, middle school years none of my childhood was really sweet. And so I was like, I don't want to end up poor. I hated that. Every time I went home to go, I want to do this sport, nobody's paying for that. So when I got older, I was like, I got to own a business if I'm ever going to be rich. You know, you're a kid, you know, and you don't know a whole lot about what's out there. I was like, man, that's the thing, you know, right? Sell drugs, own a business. And I wasn't cut for the first one. So like, that was kind of the first thought. When I was a senior in high school, I was interested in physical therapy. So my idea was I'm gonna own a physical therapy clinic and have a gym on the side. Then when I got to college, I learned that strength and conditioning was a field. Like this stuff, I wish I had this in high school. Like I'm moderately athletic, but if I had this type of coaching, I could have done a lot better. And that's actually, when it comes to strength conditioning, and probably other types of coaching as well, that's a major reason a lot of people get into coaching is they did not have the athletic qualities to thrive on alone. And so like I was the guy when I would be doing extra workouts on my own. I had a breakout year my senior year because I would go to my cousin's gym and I ran 300 meter hurdles. I'm gonna do my leg exercises for 45 seconds and then boom, personal best first meet. And so, you know, those kind of things is what kind of led into that. What really pushed me to this point, like there was just a lot of stuff I did in college, is letting it be a refresher and taking up opportunities to like be in charge, be responsible for things. Not so much as being in charge, but being responsible for things. So like student organizations, I started hosting workouts because I got cut from the track team. We got into it about something with a grad assistant. And I ended up doing a Tough Mudder. And so I trained for a Tough Mudder. So I was like, you know what? Day 1 lift, day 2 boot camp, day 3 like 5-mile run, day 4 rest. And I just did that rotation for an entire semester. And I had people coming to do the boot camp workouts with me. That was kind of popular. I would have my friends, you know, a few of them would come and lift with me. And everything happened at 6 in the morning. So I did that for the whole semester, did the Tough Mudder. And then that spurred me to like really be a little bit more into like the taking charge of things. I was, you know, hosted workouts at UPMC Mercy for winter break and just getting opportunities to just do stuff and create stuff. And when I was in grad school in Texas, then it took up another level. I was hosting coaching clinics abroad. So I coached track in Belize for a week on the end of a backpacking trip. I coached in Kenya for the next 3 years, like doing sports science coaching for soccer coaches. And so that kind of built up to when I moved back to Pittsburgh in 2016, it was, all right, I'm going to go work at, you know, where you was working. I don't know, I'm not going to shout them out, but I was going to work over there. And then it was like, it will pay you $6 to do a 25-minute session. And I was like, my boy, I didn't train in like several countries. I didn't have a master's degree. I've had all this, up to that point, 5 years of experience coaching that I could verify. Y'all want to pay me what? So then I was working for the county and it became like, you know what? I was doing some training like on the driveway at the crib in Penn Hills, and I'm like, I'm gonna go find somebody's gym to sublet. And so that kind of started it, because at the time I was really applying for places, but like my ego, I was applying for places that you don't apply for, they ask for you to come there.
Right.
And so there's, there is a good old boys network in everything in life, and quite frankly, people, I'm learning, I like recommendations as much as possible. That's how people operate. And so, I got a couple offers, a couple places, but I ended up moving back here. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to just sublease somebody's gym. So shout out to Darnell. His gym's Hard Work Sport Performance over in Belsuver. He gave me my first shot, paid him. And my boy Akeem Robinson, he is Coach Keem Fitness. His wife, I used to train her in college. She came to like some of my fitness classes that I coached. So she kind of told me about, like, she introduced me to the idea that I could sublet at somebody's gym. And so that started, and then boom, I started Global Human Performance, and was like, oh, all right, so we're gonna do this. And I thought I was business savvy because I was a responsible person. Business and being responsible and coaching are three very different things. So there was a whole lot to learn about getting the business stuff together. And then, then I made a whopping $1,683 one month. I'm 25 years old, and I'm like, I'm gonna leave my job. So that was financially a really bad decision, I'm not gonna hold you. But I went and did that, and here we are.
Wow. Business side of it, right? So one thing that I did learn from working at the place that I worked at before, there was this one guy, and shout out to him, Jamal, and he was my VP. And this guy was so good at what he did, right? And I went into this experience with no ego. I was just like, man, you know what? Let me learn off of this guy, because I seen that he was really good at what he did. And I learned the importance of competence, right? The importance of knowing what you're doing and being precise and following through with your mission, right? And when you said, like, there's so many hats that you gotta have when owning a business. Owning a business for 5 years, I went into it like, man, I know what I'm doing. Like, I know how to make money. Everybody has that mindset. Like, you're like, well, how hard can it be? I know how to make money. There's a lot of people who are unfit. I know how to get fit because I'm fit. I know how to teach fitness. How much of your ego did you have to let die to be where you're at?
Oh, so much of it. Especially, so a lot of it, to answer your question very directly. So it's 2017, it's February, and I had my first clients, and I'm down in Belsuver with Darnell and Akeem. Darnell had been doing this for almost 20 years, or I don't know if it's that long, 10, 15, 20 years, something like that. He'd been doing this for a while. He had an established client base. Akeem was popping. He had a whole lot. And like, there was a whole lot I didn't understand about marketing, about consistency. Like, the only thing that I really knew was the training. And and they both gave me kudos. Like, I ran a good ship when it came to the training, but when it came to everything else, man, it was a crapshoot. And so, and here I go, like, I had just trained in Belize. Like I told you, I trained in Belize, I trained in Mexico. I had a master's degree from the University of Texas. I was a great alum from Slippery Rock, right? It's something that, like, I was having a conversation about earlier, because it's a separate thing, but like, to that point, all I got was praise. I'm not one of the people that had like all the haters, right? Never had that. Like, I was usually my own person in my own way. So I'm in this situation, like, I'm on my high horse, bruh. Like, I'm showing up on my high horse, right? And I'm like, I'm the low dog on the totem pole in there, because it's three of us trainers in there. People got egos, and I'm the one who, like, got the smallest business, right? I'm trying to learn and grow, and I had to humble myself to let the two of them teach me stuff. Like, Akeem taught me a lot of stuff about how to market myself and put myself out there. Dealing with both of them taught me a lot of people negotiating skills, I should say. The learning humility about being in Darnell's gym. Like, there was a lot I had to back down on. Not back down on like they pressured me, but like just back off my ego and my own arrogance, so to say, to learn from them. And to then, like, I joined different masterminds. I've been a part of 2 or 3 masterminds. I've had different coaches over the years who helped me like learn business skills. I have right now, currently, I had a gym consultant who I pay big money to help me with a lot of the processes and things that I've done here. I have a personal business coach from a program, Entrepreneurs Forever, that I'm a part of. She helps me with my business IQ. She dug into me yesterday just about trying to challenge me, and I had to learn to not be defensive about it. I have another leadership coach who she also is challenging me to like just with thinking bigger and like pushing up against me and really helping me grow. And I have to like, you don't know everything, bro. And like that, I'm at a much better place with that, and like really just like, yo, I don't know anything. And what's helpful is because I'm learning from all these people over the years, I'm learning just how much more there is to learn, and that's really keeping me like helping me be reminded to stay humble.
Yeah.
So that it was a lot.
That's big. That's big. And one thing I appreciate about what you just said is that you're always willing to learn. It's not always easy because you do have to put your ego to the side, because that's one thing. Not only just as business owners, but as men, just as like, you know, just humans, man. You never want to feel like you're getting pushed over. You never want to feel like people are like not acknowledging the fact that you've done all of these things that most people, they're making so much money and they haven't done half of what you've done, right? But in the same sense, you have to be willing to learn from those people as well, because obviously something's working with them. They're doing something that's gaining them business. So sometimes you got to step back and be like, okay, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
You know, so that's big, and I love that. I love that. I think a lot of people can learn from that. I always, one of my friends told me this back in high school, and he was like, some of the best teachers are people who are always willing to learn. And the reason why I know that's true is because when you're repeating this process and when you're teaching, you're also teaching yourself because you're repeating it. You're being competent to what you're saying. You're believing what you're saying. You know, it's just sometimes where you can be saying something that's true to you, but if you're unsure, people read that.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know if you know that, like, do you believe that? But you might be telling them the truth. But if you're not confident about what you're saying, people are going to be like, oh, why would I believe you if you don't believe it?
That was literally something I was just talking to one of my intern coaches about earlier this week. Wow. And, you know, we have a certain flow that we're doing, and we were doing evaluations all week, and it was like, when you're running the warm-up, like just in a group session, right? We have these small group sessions, and I was watching him run it, and he was like, he knows what he's doing, but he's just unsure. Like, he wasn't projecting his certainty. And it's like, you're wasting time, and you're making the workout take up time because you're telling them what to do, but you're just not as strong about it, and so they're going to question you. Yeah. And they're not questioning you because they think you're wrong, but you're not saying it with enough certainty to give them confidence. When you watch me coach, it's like, yeah, we're doing this and this and that. And, you know, I exactly like this. And so I don't get as many questions, so everything moves a lot more efficiently. And so teaching them, like, you have to be able to, you have to have the competency to even say it, but you also have to have the confidence in yourself to know this is a good idea. Yeah. And that's something not even for me, that's like I have to check myself on that. No, make sure you trust what you're saying, so just go on and say it.
Right. And the reason why they're here with you is because they believe you're the professional. So if you're telling them that, like, to do something and you're unsure, they're like, well, if you're the professional, you're not sure, what am I doing here? So that's really big. That's really big. So so a question that I always get, right, is especially, I mean, anybody that I've talked to, they're like, man, you're running 60 miles a week, like, or you're doing these big endurance, like tomorrow I got 18 mile running. For me, I'm just like, this is what I do. I mean, it's a part of the process. One question that I always get is why don't we see more people of melanin, black people, in the endurance space? What would you say is the reason for that?
From my current experience and perspective as of now, and this could change over time, from when I look at who comes to my gym, when I look at the teams that tend to be good at cross country, when I look at the people that I meet when I'm out and about at races and different things like that, I think part of it's actually kind of a class thing. I was just on Instagram and somebody had posted about the health, life expectancy of different neighborhoods in Pittsburgh. And in a nutshell, the higher the income of your zip code, the higher your life expectancy is. And yeah, some of that's access to medical, but there's a certain peace of mind that I believe comes with, being financially secure, economically secure, that allows one to more recreationally take care of their fitness. I do meet people who, are lower on the socioeconomic ladder who take care of their fitness, but they're not doing sports recreationally.
Right.
And so I think there's a recreational aspect to fitness that comes with economic security and class, that if we just look at history in America and how the stats are, black people are just not at the highest of that list. And so when I even meet black people out, when I'm at a triathlon, when I'm at a half marathon, don't get me wrong, I find people who they don't have the most high paying jobs, but by and large, they're definitely usually more middle class and up. Whereas and just based on how few we already are percentage wise in the actual census, 13-14%. So now we're 1 of 10 of any person that you see. And then on top of that, being somebody who has the peace of mind to do a recreational sport, especially when you're not 20 something. Sure, you could be broke at 22 and go out and do sports.
Right.
But when you're 44 and you're trying to work 2 jobs, or maybe you and your wife or you and your husband are trying to make ends meet, you got these kids, you're not thinking about running a marathon. Mm-hmm. I mean, not too many are, I should say.
No.
And so I think from my perspective, that's a big thing when I look at who's taking up sports like this. Because even if I look at, at the high school level, middle school level, youth level, when it comes to cross country, we find these kids who are in these, more middle class or upper class school districts who thrive in these sports.
Right.
But some of that is culturally, their parents, they might be into it. And then, there's not as big of a push for the money sports like football, basketball, baseball, volleyball, maybe. There's not as big of a push for certain sports because they're not so pressed about the scholarship, or even the idea of their role models is beyond that. And so I look at some kids that I meet, and even in my own family, they get obsessed about football, basketball because these, don't get me wrong, the megastars are the megastars. So there's kids of all classes who get obsessed with this, who dedicate their lives to certain things. But I think when it comes to representation, they see that and that's kind of the ticket out.
Yeah.
And so they pursue that, and sometimes it takes for them a long time to maybe pivot to another sport like endurance running. Whereas I find that a lot of the people who I meet who are cyclists, who do triathlon, who run very seriously, and are over the age of 35 also, they tend to just be more economically secure people.
Yeah. I think that summed it up perfect.
And I want to be clear. I do meet people who who are financially not as well off as they are maybe as running, and they do participate. I think there is that whole fitness, health outcomes with class and especially income. So that I think that also affects the numbers, but it's also in the context of recreationally competing.
Yes.
Because, I was just talking to a guy who's not black earlier today at a race up north, and he was like, I want to do these races, but bro, they'd be $100, $150 a pop for a race. Yeah. And the big ones are $200, $300. Not everybody wants to just kick that out every month. It's like a bill to go run. Right. So there's also, that aspect of the recreational part, in the competitive sense. Yeah. I do the hard things anyways, but that's just my thought process on what I've experienced and why sometimes. And so, but we got to dig in and get it done.
Got to dig in, and I love it. I think that you summed it up really good. And I also as well, I want to show people that there's no right answers, right?
Yeah.
There's no right answers. These are just I love having these conversations with people because it's good to see someone else's brain work, because there may be somebody that watches this and realizes that it's more possible than they thought.
Yeah.
Right? And there might be somebody who's rich or who got money, who can afford everything, that decides that, like, you know what, I've been not doing anything, let me go out there. So it's just to motivate and to show people that there's a positive way to release stress, to get healthy, to and not only is it going to benefit you, you become that nucleus for your family, because your mom, your dad, your wife is going to see, like, man, you did it, I can do it too. I can lose some weight. Like, so it's the benefits that your family gets and that you as well get. So that's, man, I love it. So there's two ways that I like to end my podcast, or there's two questions that I like to end my podcast on. So one, what is your favorite song at the moment? What is that song that is motivating you, that if you are down, if you need to pick me up, what song would you go to that's going to get you to run that 5 mile?
What song am I going to go to? There's so many right now, and like I be in such phase about, you know, what I'm listening to, what's moving me right now. And first of all, artist-wise, it's got to be my guy Payroll Giovanni out of Detroit. Don't tell me
it's a good day to get money.
It's a good day to get money. Man. That's my dude. I've been listening to that man for like 5 years. I don't think there's a Payroll song I don't know for real.
Man.
So there's that. And then as a particular song, it really changes. But what I'm going to say, because I'm trying to think about which song in particular, I got to pull it up real quick. Because there's a particular song, and I just got to pull up the album to just see what that is. And Another Day, Another Dollar. So it was the right now, Make It Look Easy. That's the jam I go to.
All right.
So Payroll did a track with a whole. He does plenty of albums with Cardo, and there's one that Make It Look Easy. And I remember last year in March, I did David Goggins 4x48 with my guy Marcel, and like I had it popped in. I make it look easy, and like just when I'm moving, like, cause you know sometimes it's stressful, and you got to remind yourself, no, bro, this is easy.
It's
like.
easy.
And it's not that it is, but when you tap into that, you just go. So that's the jam right now.
That's big, man. Okay, all right, Payroll. I love to see people, and I know you said you've been listening to them for a long time. I love to see people who you've been listening to, and they were underground, and they're getting big recognition now. And you're like, man, like it feels like you're winning too, because you're like, man, that's really like, okay, all right, I love that.
You go back to them old hustle music tracks, and then you got the new ones. You hear the polishing, how things get better. You watch the man grow up, because I think he's about the same age. I think he's like a year or two older than me. And so, and he's also an Aquarius. Like our birthday is like a week apart, and like just watching this transformation of just from afar, obviously from songs and from the internet of this person as they grow, and it's interesting. But like, there's a 1 out of 4 chance if you ever see me with AirPods in, that's probably what I'm listening
Payroll.
to. And that got me into the whole Detroit rap scene. Wow. Babyface Ray, I'm on a big kick right now. PZ, you know, those are like the main 3 that I listen to out of there.
That's crazy. But also it goes back to a conversation we had before we started the podcast about those time capsules. Right?
Oh yeah.
Because now you've literally witnessed someone grow from the beginning to where they are now, and that's exactly what we're doing here. So we'll be able 5 years, 2 years down the line, we'll be able to look back at this podcast and be like, wow, like it's polished now, and hopefully this gym gets, you know, to a point where you're at a bigger level and you got more, you know, more clients, and you're getting better at coaching. So it's like you're going not see you actually seeing somebody else's growth and you expressing it. Now you get a chance to see your growth in the same way. So that's dope. I love it. Okay. And the second question I want to ask you, what is your favorite book right now?
My favorite book. So my favorite book is a series, and it's The 3-Body Problem. So it's a Chinese science fiction series. It's fantastic. It's fantastically written, and it's from like a Chinese perspective because it's the guy who wrote it. I finished that book in 2020. I dreamed about that book, like scenes from it that I was reading for about 6 months, on and off. Like I had dreams that would pop up. I daydreamed and fantasized about just the way that they developed it and played on. So that's my favorite book series. But like as far as there's different categories of favorite book. Like what I've been going back to, I have Jim Collins' Good to Great. I go back to that and like reference that as far as a business book and like just how to run things. There's a book called Traction, I Get a Grip on Your Business by Gina Wickman that like that's in the category of favorite. Like those two are kind of like my favorite business books, but Traction is the one I go to. Like that's part of how I even run my business is through that book. I got a lot of favorites. I can go on all day.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I don't really have like Will Smith autobiography.
I gotta read
Will
that.
Smith and Asada Shakur. Asada Shakur, like just hearing her story and how she wrote the book. One of my favorite autobiographies. Will Smith's autobiography changed my whole life.
Really?
Like because Mark Manson, who co-wrote it, I've been reading Mark Manson stuff since 2013. Like, and because his smart assness is that this is how I talk. That's how I think about it. It's not always how I talk, but it's how I think. I like how he presents things. It's kind of like just against the grain a little bit. He co-wrote Will Smith's book.
Wow.
So Will Smith's book is a chronology of his life, but with like a self-help element because all the chapters have themes. And so he's telling his life story through themes. Through each chapter, and it's fantastically written. But like some of the things that it made me think about and the prompting of that book that I read earlier this year, it helped warp how I move in life.
Wow. Okay. So for the audience out here, what is a lesson that you've learned from either that book, the book, one of your favorite books, or this favorite song? Like just one lesson that you want to pass on, and hopefully someone out there can pick up that book that changed your life, whether it's the Will Smith or if it's just turning on some payroll Giovanni. What is one thing that you've learned from either of those things that you carry with you every day?
Having a North Star and a direction that you go is one of the key things to being able to live a life that you can look back and be proud of. That's something I got from the Will Smith book. And it's not that he said that. There was a conversation he had with JL, his manager, in that book, and when he was reflecting on it. And JL asked him, like, what are we doing all this for? The Fresh Prince was starting to take off. I think it was on his third album, and they're handling all the mistakes they made from the second album. JL's like, what are we doing all this for? And he had to think and go back, and he was like, you want to be the biggest movie star in history. He's like, now that's something we could work with. So they created this North Star that, and he had other parts about family and things like that, but like those kind of things about how he wanted to raise his family, how he wanted to be the biggest movie star in the world, it influenced all the decisions. And so when I think about having a North Star, like it influences all the other decisions, like down to how I run my business. What type of things do I do outside of work? How do I take care of myself? Who should be in my life on an intimate level? Who should be in my life as far as friends go? How do I want to handle my family? When I look back at that North Star, I don't know how my life's going to play. I cannot. Sure, people like Pat David say, you got to plan your next 15 moves. Life is not exactly like chess. You can plan these things out, but you're not going to go in this direction, right? You might go in that direction.
Right.
But you have to know that if I have 360 degrees, I'm going in that general direction. And, whatever happens as that unfolds is the journey and the beauty of life, because you're never going to get to that point. Mm-hmm. But you have to have a point you're going to, because that point tells you not to go that way. Because that way is going to be what you don't want. And so every decision you make when you have that North Star is about going that way on the journey. If you're going to climb, if you have 5 mountains that you can climb, you have to pick which mountain you plan to climb. Right. You don't know how you're going to get to the top, though, because the wind might change, it might snow. You might find out there's stuff on there that wasn't on your map that you used, but you're going up that mountain. Right. You're not going up these other mountains. Right. And so I think having that North Star and having that point of focus about what you want your life to be like and really who you want to be able to develop towards, I think that is very key to being able to, it's something that's been my big focus, is try to live life well and make mistakes well. Learn from those things well and just try to make the best choices you can.
Wow. Yeah, man. Well, with that pretty much sums it up. Tell the people a little bit, where they can find you, your socials, and how they can find your gym, and if they want to inquire about getting training, how do they get in touch with you?
So you can find me. My most active social media is on Instagram. I'm at Coach_Donald on social media. The Global Human Performance, that's the gym. We have at Global Human Performance. You can also just go straight on the website, www.ghperformance.com. Got a lot of media outlets. I have a podcast called Training Well Done. that is about the what, the why, and the how of quality training. And so you can find that on all streaming platforms. While you're listening to this, you might type in that search bar like, oh, let me look that up, right? And so, these are ways you can find us. As far as where the gym is, we're in Point Breeze. We do personal training, one-on-one training, small group training. We have a fantastic team of coaches here that help you go from where you are to where you want to be. We help a lot of younger athletes. We're the first time they're ever in a training facility, so we teach them how to train the right way. A lot of active adults or want to be active adults, we help get them to where they want to go, get the bodies out of so much pain. As we get older, just things pop up, so we help them get through that. We also do a lot of running, coaching, virtual coaching. I have a guy who's running the Dallas Marathon in a few weeks, so we do that as well. So you can find us at www.ghperformance.com. And if you follow me on Instagram, I just do a bunch of stuff. Depending on when you release this, I currently have a fundraiser for Community Forge, which is in Wilkinsburg. They do a lot of great work for entrepreneurs, for the community in general. They have youth programs, community programs in the Wilkinsburg community. So you can also see that on my Instagram. We're raising $1,000 for them. So that ends after the EQT on November the 6th, though. So
Okay, cool. That's great.